Hi, my name is Hannah Kazi. I am going to be presenting to you what I have learned throughout this course of healthcare terminology. I thought this course would only teach me what the cold, hard healthcare terms were, but hand in hand, it has also taught me the realism of the medical field and how knowing the correct terminology is crucial for communication, which in turn saves us from making costly mistakes. Common medical errors. This activity allowed me to realize how vulnerable patients are in the hands of physicians, especially if they know very little about the medical world. And it's crazy to wrap your mind around how secure people feel when they go to the doctor and they just trust that they're in competent hands. But in a world full of imperfect people, it should not be a surprise how many medical errors occur on a day-to-day basis. In a study done by the Institute of Medicine Committee on Quality of Healthcare in America, 44,000 to 98,000 people died in a hospital in 1997 due to errors that could have been prevented. Even one fatality from something that could have been prevented is a tragedy, and 44,000 people that died due to errors that didn't need to happen is very, very sad. But common medical errors include incorrect dosage of prescription medication. Causes of this error include distractions, failure to consider patient's age, and improper use of abbreviations. Nearly 75% of medication errors have been attributed to distractions in the workplace. In order to minimize distractions, hospitals have urged their physicians to not answer patient calls until patient duties are complete, including prescribing the right dosage. This makes me think about how quickly how I myself could make errors, and in which ways would that happen, and would I be distracted? And so it was very cool in the next activity to be able to do a self-reflection and to think about how my strengths and weaknesses will play a part in my future career. My strengths include empathy, patience, and compassion for people. My weaknesses are multitasking, taking on too much responsibility, and pride. My strengths have always been very relational, making me excited for the relationship aspect of healthcare. On the other hand, though, I know there's so much more to healthcare than strictly relational, and my weaknesses show me there's still a lot of room for growth and maturity in the seriousness part of healthcare. After digging deep and finding my true weaknesses, this medical scenario really made me wrestle with my integrity. It is so easy to cover up your mistakes to avoid conflict and consequences, and for this reason, I struggle with the idea of punishing people for their mistakes, for it is better to speak light of them than to say nothing at all. It is essential to build an environment in which it is safe for nurses to admit medication errors, learn from their error, and understand the nature of the error. I know personally it would be extremely hard to admit that I was the one at fault, and I would be terrified of the consequence that would happen. But this is why it is imperative to create an environment where telling the truth is encouraged, since it is the patients who matter the most. Working in healthcare needs to be a selfless job, but because of our fallen nature, it is hard not to think of yourself and your own needs just as much, if not more. After struggling with this medical scenario, it was really cool to interview someone who has to deal with the friction of this on a day-to-day basis. I interviewed Dr. Scott Abrams, who is a family medicine doctor. These are a few insights I gained by asking him questions on the importance of medical terminology and communication among everyone involved in his day-to-day schedule. Dr. Abrams stressed that you cannot practice medicine without understanding the language that comes with it. The patient does not need to learn this language, but it is the physician's job to make sure they understand what they need to do. Dr. Scott went on and said that it is so easy for patients to feel stupid by asking some questions, and so it is imperative for the physician to be able to make sure they know what they need to know and what they need to do in order to help themselves. And making yourself an asset, Dr. Abrams said it was as simple as following the rules and doing your job correctly to keep from making mistakes. I love how clearly he wrote that, and just how it is easy to not make mistakes if you take the time to do everything correctly. After hearing how Dr. Abrams was able to make himself an asset, it was cool to think about how I personally would try to do that for my own organization. And I would definitely do everything I could to create an environment where communication and accountability flourish. That is making sure everyone's on the same page, doing huddles and between shifts, and making sure everyone knows what's going on. I would need to admit when I make mistakes instead of falling into pride. This is a big one, because I know how I have a tendency of covering up my mistakes, which we learned in the medical scenario. So I definitely need to work on that. In addition to that, I would ask questions and keep learning. The world moves so fast around us, and it's so important to be able to keep up with it in the medical field and to keep yourself on your toes and to keep yourself sharp. So yeah, I would definitely want to keep learning and not be afraid to ask questions. But also, just as Dr. Abrams said, I would want to follow the rules and not cut corners and do exactly what I need to do, even if it takes more time. In conclusion, this course has taught me not only medical terminology, but also the importance of being a competent medical professional. I was exposed to how many errors are made in medicine and how important communication is. I was able to evaluate myself and see how I will be able to minimize error, but also where I need to take extra care to make sure that I keep from making errors. I gained insight from someone who lives in an imperfect world, yet does the best he can to keep from making mistakes. This allowed me to see the importance in creating a culture of accountability and communication. It's been so cool to be able to put myself right into the medical field, which, though I work at an assisted living home, it's so cool to be able to see all the different fields and how they are all very similar in their needs of communication and honesty and accountability. Thank you so much for this course. It's been a treat to be a part of it. Thank you.